who got that optimization insider.
Amy, thank you for coming on. So you're from one of probably the best known nonprofits in terms of like online advertising and online marketing. I think a lot of people look up to your organization. Tell us a little bit about Charity Water, what you do.
Yeah, so I am the Senior Manager of Acquisition Marketing. So my job is to bring people into the door and get them engaged with our brand. And how did I end up at Charity Water? It's kind of like I think for a lot of people who work at Charity Water, a lot of us came from the for-profit side. And so before this job, I'd worked in advertising agencies, tech company, and then kind of transitioned over to the nonprofit space. So I think a lot of the psychology behind what we do is very similar, but the end result and kind of the meaning behind it and the impact is a little bit different. And so that's kind of, I guess, my role at Charity Water is to take what I've learned in the for-profit space and apply it to getting more people access to clean water. Yeah,
that's really cool. I was talking to some people yesterday or the day before and kind of asking them, like, what are the things that keep you coming back to work every day and keep you, specifically at Charity Water, like what's your passion there? What keeps driving you forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of it is just the people that I work with and feeling like I'm part of a group of people who are passionate about what they do, and I think we help to kind of spur each other on to be better, to uphold our values of excellence, of integrity, and I think just being able to work with people who share those values really keeps things inspiring and keeps us going. Yeah,
that's awesome. I kind of asked that too because you were talking a little bit in your presentation about storytelling and how you do that through Facebook advertising, and so I think hearing your story is important within that context. What would you say to like someone who's out there listening, watching, who's just trying to figure out, what story do I even have to tell? I'm sure they have a great cause, they're working hard every day, but where do you draw this content from?
I think there's a lot of trial and error, obviously, and I think most nonprofits do have a wealth of content and of beautiful images and videos and stories that they've been collecting over the years. And so for us, it was kind of, I think that the key is to finding a story that people can relate to, and that, I think people talk about the hero's journey and kind of the arc of, who you were before and after, and the journey to getting to where you are. And so I think that is something that anyone can relate to. So, regardless of whether you're bringing clean water to people or, helping a child in need, I think you'll always be able to find those stories that people find a common thread with.
Yeah. And so you're drawing those stories from the work that you're doing in the field. Where are those coming from? Do you have someone dedicated to finding those things?
Yeah. So
what does the process look like?
There's certainly, our creative team is a huge part of gathering the stories from the field, so they really know our local partners that we work with. They know the communities really well, and so when they actually will go out a few times a year to different countries and regions that we work in and collect those stories and talk to different people. And so that's kind of how we gather those external stories, but then obviously internally we have a ton of content as well, just about the people that work at Charity Water, which I think people also like to see those stories as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, especially showing that story to the donor to see what the work looks like every day to keep things running and keep serving people. That's really cool. Okay, so then along the lines of advertising, Facebook, that's what you touched on most in your talk. What does it look like to translate these stories that you're collecting to an actual ad campaign? I think that's where a lot of the disconnect might lie. Is how do I have this cool video, but it might not work for me to just copy and paste this video into an ad campaign and blast it to everybody on Facebook. So how do you translate that?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think what I've found is that the more organic it feels, the better it tends to perform. And so I think people are pretty savvy these days. Like they kind of know that they're being advertised to when they see an ad, right? And so not to say that you should, trick your audience into watching a video, but I think, providing some sort of like an entertainment value or learning opportunity. And I think that is what gets people to pause and to view a piece of content. So it's not necessarily about it being a campaign per se, it's more about, hey, here's this cool thing that we want to share with you. And it would be great if you wanted to learn more about it.
Yeah. Interesting. So as someone's building out, whether it's a Facebook ad campaign or they're just posting on their daily social media routine, what tips do you have for someone to try and connect with that audience as far as maybe it's copywriting or that sort of thing?
I would say that there's a lot of, like, to keep the content fresh, there are always kind of like different ideas that you could use, and I think this isn't just on the advertising side, it's also just on how you approach social media and how you are telling the stories that you want to tell. So we try to keep it pretty varied, so we'll do, depending on the season, we try to kind of tailor it to the season in which we're in. And so we have kind of heat moment campaigns where, you know, if it's back to school, we might talk about the ways that children's lives are affected by being able to go to school every day instead of going to get water. And so that could be a little mini series that we do.
And finding those points of like relevancy.
Exactly. And so it relates to the moment that you're in at that time, but it's also it's educational, it's kind of heartwarming. So I think it's kind of tying it into not disrupting the flow of what someone's already doing in their feed.
Okay, so closing the loop here. You're finding these stories, you're telling them through these advertising. What are you asking people to do? Are you showing this really cool video of a story and saying, come to our website and donate? How do you close the loop between Facebook and someone actually taking that step forward to become a one-time donor, let alone a recurring donor?
So I think with the unique case of the video, the ask at the end of the video is to join the spring. So it's kind of, we've told you our entire story, here's how you can get involved. And so the video doesn't say like, click now or anything, like it's just join the spring. So the CTA is become a part of a community, make an impact. It's less of like a give now or a donate now. I think just because I think people tend to recoil a little bit when they get asked up front. And it's just language, right? Because essentially you're asking them to do the same thing, but it's more of like a join us. And so I think that tends to work better.
That's kind of along the lines, I don't know if you saw Carl Gillis speak this morning, but he had a little thing where he was talking about, you know, a lot of e-commerce sites have buttons that say buy now or purchase now, and then was showing some examples of breaking that down into some smaller, maybe more digestible steps. Like I think the example was a hotel booking website where we'll go like find your room and then I'll reserve my room, and kind of walking them through some softer calls to actions. It seems like that you have found some good ways to bridge that gap a little bit. So it's very cool. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for speaking. If people have more questions for you, what's the best way to get in touch?
They can, I think the app has a question and answer feature, so I'm happy to answer questions there. And then you can always email me, amy.zhang@charitywater.org.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Optimization inside it, baby. Ooh.